You're listening to Choose Views with Richard Chew.
Well, welcome back to Choose Views. Thanks for being with us this morning. One of the things that continues to happen is that we have these really strong voices that have been in politics. Some have left. And the thing that's consistent is that they have continued to be a leading voice. Joe Cunningham, who is one of those folks, member of the Democratic Party, narrowly defeated Republican State Representative Katie Arrington back in 2018. He's been around the block, as I'll say, in a positive way, and still is in the fight to make sure that we are speaking well to what's going on in so many areas that are important to us. Joe, welcome to Choose Views.
Thanks so much for having me.
Take a little bit of time and tell our audience here and all over the country a little bit about you, a little bit about your background, and then let's get into some of the things that you're currently working on.
Yeah, of course. So I'm here in Charleston, South Carolina. Married, got 3 kids, 2 dogs. I jumped into politics back in 2017, and the shortest answer I can give you is that Trump was elected in 2016, and then I overreacted. But that's as succinct as I can put it, because in 2018 we saw a monumental new wave of leadership come in. I mean, that's when AOC came in. You had Abigail Spanberger, Mikey Sherrill, Alyssa Slotkin, a bunch of powerful women coming in, and I was part of that monumental freshman class. I flipped a district here in South Carolina that was gerrymandered, that had not seen a Republican in 40 years serve it. I'm sorry, that had not seen a Democrat serve it in 40 years. It was a district that Trump had carried by 13 points 2 years before. So ended up being one of the biggest upsets in the country. And the next cycle, when Trump was on the ballot, I almost did it again. It fell short by a point and was the Democratic nominee for governor statewide here in South Carolina in 2022. And since then, I've returned back to practicing law, but advocating for the issues I'm passionate about, one of which I'm excited to talk about today.
You know, we have this connective tissue when I look at our politics right now as Democrats. A lot of imperfection, a lot of stuff that we've got to do to rebuild trust, all that stuff. But that's part of any organization that's looking to get better. And I think the Democratic Party right now is in that space. And we've had some successes, a lot of state elections, state legislatures that we've won, and some of these off-year elections or special elections, however they're deemed. And we've got momentum right now. And I want to see us continue with that. What do you think is the biggest thing that we have going for us in terms of maintaining and keeping that momentum?
I think the environment is critical right now. I mean, the wind is at our back. I mean, these failed policies have put people in dire straits, economic hardships. It's become so expensive just to stay alive. And when people are struggling to pay their grocery bills or their rent, or they're getting dinged for different fees and invoices, and then you look at a ballroom being built in D.C., or you look at billions of money going into Iran, shipped overseas as opposed to fixing our broken systems here at home, there's a growing frustration. And that has become more and more evident as you look across the country. And so I think that the time is right for new leadership, especially new generation of leadership coming in, but also, the failed policies, specifically of President Trump and his administration, are just being highlighted for Americans.
Well, and you talked about the ballroom, for example, and one of the things that I look at and say, regular everyday folks like you and me and millions of folks who voted for this administration aren't going to ever set foot in that ballroom. And if there were going to be money spent on a structure in Washington, D.C. that was really for the people, then build a structure that's going to be something that folks can come and visit and learn something and to enhance their lives, but not a doggone ballroom that's going to be, for the rarefied air of politicians and moneyed up people, right?
Well, and I have even less of a problem by the ballroom than I do what's going on overseas. And just in the fact that, maybe there is additional space that that is needed up there. It's the timing and the optics of it, though, at a time when most people are struggling. And they're asking themselves, well, what about the policies that can lift up Americans? What about, like codifying the most favored nation that brings our drug prices in line with the rest of the developed world? I mean, why can't we, get private equity out of the housing market, which consumes 1 out of 4 homes these days and is raising prices for the middle class? Why can't we just make some meaningful change that can lift up all Americans?
And that's why, when we look at the items that are important right now, we know, and many people that I've talked to on my show have said to me, Richard, the 2 biggest issues right now are affordability and accountability. And I talk about that a lot. Actually, I got to give credit where it's due. Amy McGrath, who'd run for Senate in Kentucky, really is the one that's really been leading that voice. It's not just affordability, but it's also accountability, because a lot of the things that are going on, people just feel like nobody's being held to account for this chaos that's taking place in Washington, but also in many of the state legislatures. What are your feelings about the conversation around accountability as much as affordability?
I think they go hand in hand, because as people are trying to afford everyday ticket items, that anger, that frustration is compounded by, reckless spending that they see from their government, or misuse of funds, or, insider trading, or people profiting off these government deals. I mean, that only makes just the frustration grow among everyday Americans. And so I agree that they go hand in hand. Look, you want your government to work, and you want to be able to at least trust it. And right now, people are seeing just a lot of just ideas and policies that are pushed aside, and instead folks are focusing on padding their own pockets, or stock trades and things like that. So there's a lot of growing frustration there, though.
Yeah, it's clear to me that many people are tired of playing by the rules that are laid down for the masses. And then there's a select few, and this is nothing new. There's always been that group of people that skirt the rules or create a, kind of a protection for themselves against the rules. But I like no other time in my life, and maybe going back to Watergate, I could say, have I seen the everyday person in America really want to see some folks be held accountable for what's not getting done, or how things have gotten done, or what's not been done in an honest, above board way. And I'll tell you, when I hear the conversation that Congress isn't working, I draw a little bit of a line in the sand and say, no, it's Republicans right now. And I'll be partisan for a moment. It's Republicans that are not working, because they have the numbers. And if they are the representative body, they should be the ones to putting the brakes on what this administration is doing, which is so, out of alignment with what so many Americans want to see happen. That's where I want to see that accountability also reach, is not just Donald Trump and the administration and the cabinet, but there's a lot of Republicans that need to be held accountable for what they've not done in leadership roles. Don't you think?
I mean, when you have Republicans controlling the House, the Senate, the White House, you scratch your head as to why more can't get done. Especially when it involves like very, very popular ideas and policies. Like, I talk a lot about this, the cost of prescription drugs and most favored nation, and codifying that so that we don't pay in America 3 times as much as they do in other countries. And this is a policy that enjoys 91% of Republican support, 70% of independents, and 64% of Democrats. That seems like there seems to be like low-hanging fruit, like these policies that they could push through and get some wins, but I'm scratching my head as to why they aren't.
Yeah, and you've had this opportunity, like so many people, to write a book, and in the book, you've made it clear that our party has some shoring up to do. Those are my words. But that in that in that shoring up, though, is huge opportunity. It's not just criticizing to criticize. I say this all the time when I talk to folks about this topic, is that, we have to criticize our party. We have to, Joe, talk about what we haven't done well and what we can do better. But to the end, it must be about the opportunities that are in front of us. What would you say are some of those, top opportunities? And I know that we've got to get and be thinking past Donald Trump, because he's not going to be there forever. So no matter what they try to say about, he is going to run again in 2028. Yeah, right. But that being said, what are a couple things before we go to this break that you think are the opportunities in our criticism of our party that we can use to be beyond Trump?
I think we've lost credibility with a lot of American voters based upon, what happened in 2024 with Joe Biden decided to run for re-election, with Kamala Harris stepping in. But it goes back before that to how he spoke to voters. We, inventing terms and words where the common voters feel like we're either speaking down to them or speaking at them as opposed to speaking to them. And also being a little bit humble about, where we were in the past, but also where we're going to go in the future. And that includes bringing in new ideas. And when I look across the Democratic establishment, I haven't seen just an outpouring of new and bold ideas. Say what you want to about Trump, but you understand his ideas because they're spoken in plain words, and you can acknowledge that he has some of them. I just feel like there's been an absence of those bold ideas. And look, I'm a lifelong Democrat, and so came from a party where, the TVA and the New Deal, and these are big, bold policies that uplifted every American. That's what we need to get back to.
Yeah, I've come to realize that bipartisanship is important. However, the other side has to be willing to work with us. And clearly, we've been trying, right, but the Republicans have not shown me, and I'm talking about on the state level and on a federal level, any real interest in working with us. We keep getting our hands slapped when we try to, reach across the aisle. And that's why whenever I've had a chance to talk with an elected congressional member of Congress, I'm like, they're not our colleagues right now if they're not willing to work with us. And I believe that. We want to be the party of bipartisanship. We want to be the party that's reaching out to the other side. But they've got to be willing to work with us right now. And I haven't seen any signs of that. But it doesn't mean that we stop trying to do it. We still have to come up with the new ideas, like you said, and bring some new, old New Deal sort of thinking to the table, so that our side can say, yeah, that makes sense. But why don't we take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about that thing called drug pricing and where we are when it comes to pharmaceuticals. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chew. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back with more of Chew's Views. Okay, guys, welcome back to Chew's Views. Thanks for being with us this morning. As I said at the top of the segment, we're talking with Joe Cunningham, who has been, as he said in his own definition, lifelong Democrat that's fought real hard for bipartisanship and finding ways for us to be connected and working together. And one of the areas that this is something that doesn't pick red, blue, or in the middle, and that's the huge cost and investment in prescription medication. Joe, let's talk a little bit about what you've been working on as of late when it comes to drugs, drug pricing, and where we as a country need to be suited better when it comes to big pharma.
Yeah, so here's the layout right now, is that in the United States of America, we pay on average about 3 times as much for the same exact drugs as those people in other developed nations. So we're basically subsidizing the lower cost of people in other countries. The concept of the most favored nation is that we bring our prices in line with those around the globe. And so that's been proposed. It's been proposed by this administration, and it's actually a piece of legislation that's been introduced by Congressman Ro Khanna, a friend of mine, who is on the far left. The irony here, though, the beauty of this is he's also got people on the far right. He's got, he had Marjorie Taylor Greene who co-sponsored it. He's got a list of Republicans on there. This is a policy. And look, there's not many in Washington, D.C. I mean, most people up there in Congress can't even agree on the problem, more or less the solution. But this is one of those rare opportunities where you have true bipartisan support because it impacts all Americans. And I mentioned those numbers a bit earlier, but they're worth reiterating. 91% of Republicans support codifying most favored nation, 70% of independents, and 64% of Democrats are on board with it.
Well, and when I look at history, Joe, one of the things that comes to mind, and I was writing this down earlier, when it comes to negotiating drug prices, I mean, we go back and say, I'm a why person. Why and how do we get here to the best of our ability? And when it comes to negotiating drug prices right now, one could say that, George Bush, the most recent George Bush, had a not good impact on our ability to negotiate drug prices with the pharmaceutical companies. And, one of the things I think that we got to be willing to do is acknowledge that and then start to drive a wedge like Ro Khanna is doing into this conversation. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is, and after serving in Congress, you get to see firsthand just the enormous power of the big pharma lobbying industry has. So there's 3 office buildings that house members of Congress, just in the House side. There's, Longworth, Cannon, and Rayburn. And the Longworth building, when I was up there, still had, this goes back in the day, right? The members' offices still had safes in there, presumably from back in the day when lobbyists would come in, they bring their, whatever they would offer, cash or whatever, in exchange for supporting legislation. Now, we've come a long way since then. The safes are still there. I don't think they're in use, but come a long way since then. But it does highlight just how, historically, how powerful certain lobbying industries are. And if you ask yourself, why can't we get something like this done? It's because of the, big pharma, they spend bukus of money lobbying Congress to try to just throw sand in the gears and essentially stop any advancement at all.
Our health system, or I should say our community of folk, are not as healthy as we could be. And I know that there's some connection between pharmaceuticals as well as our health and human services conversation. And, Michelle Obama got criticized for wanting to see us have healthier children and have healthier activities. RFK Jr. has certainly come forward with his ideology around this. But at the end of the day, we are dependent on pharmaceuticals in large measure because we aren't as healthy as we could be. And many of the things that are going on in the country as it relates to that are tied to, let's have a healthier community where pharma doesn't have as much impact because we're not as dependent on the medical prescribed drugs. Give us your thoughts there.
I mean, the impact of people who are skipping their doses. It's like 40% of Americans report cutting pills or skipping doses or not filling prescriptions due to cost. 1 in 6 adults delay or go without care because of the cost of healthcare. Think about just the strain that puts on our already strained healthcare system. If you're not taking your pills, then what ends up happening is you end up going to the hospital. You end up having to go back to the doctor, and as opposed to maintaining care and staying out of the hospital. So it's already strained and overburdened system because people cannot afford to get their prescriptions refilled. And so it has a compounding effect on our whole entire healthcare system.
I've learned over the years that the better I take care of myself, the better that I'm going to be, and hopefully less dependent on certain pharmaceuticals, whether it be situational or ongoing. And the conversation that I think we all should try to have. One of the reasons that the GLP-1 drugs have become so popular is because we've got a crisis when it comes to obesity. But at the same time, we've got a system, a medical system, that doesn't really talk about prevention. It's more on the treatment side. And then again, this is where the pharmaceutical companies come in, and their lobbying power is immense, is that we don't have a conversation about prevention and about taking care of ourselves. We have a post, conversation about illness and all the rest. Do you think there's space in our conversation politically and socially, without sounding like we're picking on people, to talk about better health?
But no, I think it's become more mainstream. I mean, as the popularity of these GLPs have surged, people are paying attention, realizing the tremendous benefits they have for those who can afford it. That's the key thing, right? Because a month of Mounjaro in the U.S. is listed at $1,023. All right, and the Netherlands, it's $444, and it's only $319 in Japan. So,
and these are communities these are communities that their population as a country is the same as some of the populations of certain states that we have in America. So right there, let's just be honest in terms of the math, the large numbers math. Something ain't mathing. Yes. I mean, just by pure math, based upon numbers, we should be paying even less than they are. But it's having, it's having. We know the obesity rates in America and how they've surged. We've seen the impact that obesity rates have had on our military. What percentage of Americans cannot make the cut in our military because of that. It's having a strain on our healthcare system. So, I mean, these GLPs, they aren't going away. They are providing a great benefit. But again, it can only be as good as the price tag of them. Well, let me ask a question differently. As it relates to the price tag of medicine right now, obviously, I think the seemingly the most powerful lobbying group right now, it may be the defense industry, and pharma is right there. 1 and 2. I'm sure there's actual data that would determine which one is 1 or which is 2. But they're the biggest 2 right now. And they also, for me, seem to be the ones that have the least solutions-driven impact. We don't need an even bigger military. I think we need a more efficient military, and we can bring down the budgeted amounts that go to the military and put that into education, put that into healthcare, if you will. But on the pharmaceutical side, it seems as though they have had an equally, influence or detrimental influence on our overall, political system. How do we pull back there? Or do you think we can pull back there?
It's got to be results driven, right? Because it's been profit driven by big pharma. They put profits over people, and the numbers speak for themselves. And you can see their mission based solely upon their ledger sheet. And when they spend, like this past quarter, the bulk of the industry's lobbying was spent at attacking the most favored nation. And it's not just the big pharma's budget. They shave off a part of their budget, and they sent other, for instance, earlier this year, there were a bunch of conservative groups that issued a letter to Congress opposing the most favored nation. Well, the publicly available tax records showed that like 19 of the 52 signing groups accepted over $9 million in funding from this industry's top trade associations from 2019 to 2024. So, they are not only directly attacking with their own money, but they're shaving off money to send to other groups to do their bidding for them.
That's crazy. But see, here's the thing. Most people, I'll say maybe not most, but a large number of people, Joe, don't you think, don't even know about that? Don't even know that these... Go ahead.
No, you prop up a great organization like Children for Kittens, and it sounds great, but you got no idea who's funding it or whatnot. And so, there's a lot of these. I guess they call them AstroTurf groups, or but you just have to question things a bit.
Let me ask you this question as we wrap up, and it's been great talking with you about this. How do you think that the midterms, if the Dems take back the House, I mean, God will help us if we get back the Senate, but what do you think will be the outcome in this area when it comes to most favored nations if Dems take back the House?
I think I think this has to be on the table And look, I was part of that monumental class in 2018 who took back the House during President Trump's first term. I see this as kind of the sequel, and I realize there has to be accountability. But I feel like in 18, 19, and 2020, we focused too much on accountability and not enough on delivering the right results. Now, granted, this affordability crisis has been building, and so we're in a different environment now. But we've got to be able to chew gum and walk at the same time. So if we're going to hold people accountable, we also have to deliver results. And at the heart of that is driving down the cost of prescription drugs and making healthcare more affordable.
Without a doubt. Joe, how can folks find you as we wrap up today?
You can find me at Joe Cunningham, SC. And you can also learn more about Pharma Reform Alliance at www.pharmareformalliance.com. And they're also online at Pharma4 Inc. So.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. Thanks for being with us this morning on Choose Views. Joe, we'll look forward to talking to you again in the future. Sound good?
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye.